Let's do this. Alright. So we are recording now, David. How do you
Good to
feel
hear.
about that? Back on the web.
Yeah,
The interwebs.
I've been looking at the Title II. No one's been talking about how the Title II change is going to regulate prices for internet service providers. They've only been talking about how the reclassification prevents them from doing from giving priority to
Right. Right.
various, you know, yeah, to organizations or whatever. They can't do that. The service they have to provide is the same for everybody who purchases the service. Uh,
Okay.
but um, yeah, I thought that reclassification would also give more competition, or if it didn't get competition, it at least would prevent them from gouging customers with really high prices. Because the whole point is that, right, that utilities are monopolies because the infrastructure needs such high investment. So that's why you classify them as utilities, and then even though they're a monopoly, they don't overcharge.
Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to find anything online about that.
Nonetheless, they've seemed to, or at least the FCC board has seemed to appeal to everyone wanting the open, free internet. Um, and a lot of news titles have basically deemed ISPs as the losers in this landmark decision, so to speak.
Well, I mean, yeah, anytime, like private business, of course they're going to be using because they're only like making this money. But the whole point is that they shouldn't have been making that much money in the first place.
Yeah, well, everyone finds a loophole.
Did you see Verizon's reaction? They were pretty. It was a pretty bad passive aggressive display. They had a Morse code article, and when you clicked on to read the actual article, it was like It was like a typewriter document, like a PDF of a typewriter document. And
Really?
they were
Let me
saying
see
like,
that. Let me see that.
I don't know if I can find that link. Uh,
Verizon response to net neutrality. Let's see how that.
yeah, here it is. It's on Throwback Thursday Move, imposes 1930s rules on the internet. And it's in Morse code. Readers in the 21st century can read the translated statement here, and you know,
Wow.
I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, they were pretty pissed. Yeah,
That is funny.
I can't say that I know like, what the implications for this are. Um, or if there, and I'm sure like it's not all perfect. Like there will be some problems with this reclassification. But I think it was so obvious the direction in which ISPs were moving that this was a necessary and good thing that happened. You know?
The FCC's move is especially regrettable because it is wholly unnecessary.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah, I'm
FCC
sure.
had targeted tools available to preserve an open internet, but instead chose to use this order as an excuse to adopt 300 plus pages of broad and open-ended regulatory arcana that will have unintended negative consequences for consumers and various parts of the internet ecosystem for years to come.
Yeah, unintended consequences.
It
Well, the thing
seems
is,
like,
what's funny is since he says unintended consequences, what he means is there aren't any real consequences that I can warn you about. I can just boogeyman consequences that are going to happen.
I feel like it's good and bad in some regards. Like, and just the response from Verizon. It it's hard to explain really how it's good and bad, but it feels like they want us to see that they're mad, but not that mad kind of thing. It's like, oh well, we'll just try to actually do good now. Maybe Verizon could lower their prices for their services. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. They
That's the only reason why I don't like Verizon. They have great service. From everyone who I've heard of that has Verizon,
yeah, I have
it has a
Verizon.
great service, but they are so expensive. Anyway, everything more on the net neutrality.
Do I have opinions or on it?
Yeah.
Or informed opinions? The answer would be no, because I'm pretty busy. So
Informed, conformed, A-formed,
yeah, definitely conformed. Well, obviously, because I read
performed.
all my media is through the internet. So I think even if it weren't the case that these ISPs were, kind of planning on doing really unsavory things with the internet, like throttling.
Mhm.
We need to establish, all in a national, but also at a supranational level, kind of regulatory rules and like, concerning the internet. I think the internet has grown to be a human right. It's kind of like a commons, and so like I think like the United Nations should actually. I don't know if they do. That would be kind of interesting if they did, but like they should like maybe issue a statement regarding what internet, like how internet should be at an international level, because it's really really important. It's fueled a lot of the progress, not just like economic, but like political. Like in the Arab Spring, it was really important that people could communicate via Twitter.
Yeah.
For
Because
the
people
revolution.
like being social. They want to have that connection to other people to be able
Well,
to.
it's essential for any kind of. Nowadays, it's like the platform for like dissent or alternative news and media,
Connection.
because what it
And
does is it
then
lets
if you go down the more professional route, not just Twitter and Facebook, but LinkedIn.
and there are like blogs and it's just it prevents like media strangulation by people in power, right?
Mhm.
Like information strangulation. Because they can just, traditional media like television can just misinform or kind of fail to inform somebody. So I like the fact that it's classified as utility. I think it should be classified as a human right, to be honest.
Nonetheless, I'd still like to see this college internet to be better.
Yeah. Well, go make an argument that it's a violation of your human rights.
And you know what? I didn't necessarily do that, but I kind of we did make this document last semester about the whole net neutrality thing and how it's coming back. And I was in a group who made this like 5-page paper on it and presented to the class and all that. And I used the speeds here and compared them to the speeds elsewhere around campus and off campus and stuff like that as kind of one point to mention. So maybe this could get them to let us have faster speeds around here, because it's really frustrating.
Yeah, the government says you can't throttle selectively, so why is it the campus Wi-Fi is infinitely better than the dorm Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
I can get that. I mean,
Unfortunately, we never got a response from the CEO or not CEO, but like system admin, those kind of people who we actually sent the articles to that we made and the presentation, and it's kind of unfortunate.
And you don't have any influence, so they don't care.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, why would they, right? Like, you can't do anything, so they don't have to listen to anything you say.
Well, technically, I was messing around with my computer here. Ha, segue. I was messing around with my computer again to troubleshoot all the RAM problems and things like that, and I was kind of mad because in each of these rooms, so there's 4 bedrooms and the main living room, and between all of those rooms there's 6 network panels, and I'm trying to think here. So in each room there's, or in each bedroom there's a network panel that has 2 Ethernet ports in it, but only one works in each of the bedrooms. And
Yeah,
what's
we only
really
have one
annoying
live.
is in the main room there's a panel on one side and a panel on the other side, and only one of them works. Only one Ethernet out of the 4 that are in the main room works. Why? Why'd
Because
they
it
even
broke
put in more
everything.
ports than they were gonna?
Well, ours were for telephones, but I do think it's silly. Yeah, we have 4 Ethernet ports. Only one is actually like live, but I think the other ones, you used to be able to stick a telephone cord in there.
I think one of them out in the main room might be a telephone port, if or not. I'm not sure on that one, but it's really strange. It's not like they all work, but you can only use one. It's only one works. So if you want to have, the Xbox on one side of the
Really?
room, but yeah,
You have to unplug it.
yeah.
Oh, that's silly. That's silly. See, ours only one works. That's silly.
So, I actually forgot I had it. It was kind of stuffed away, but I did have a network splitter, so I pulled that out, which is kind of cool now because I have my desktop plugged in and my laptop plugged in, but it doesn't really matter anyway because the Wi-Fi, no matter where you are, is like the same speed. So the only benefit to having the hardwire is that it's plugged in, it's connected. It's not like you're getting faster speeds because your Wi-Fi is having a poor signal over here. So the strange thing I did encounter, however, is my laptop will get like 4 down and maybe 1.5, 2 up, but my desktop only gets like 2 down and 1 up.
That is
whether it's through the splitter or not. So I'm kind of curious why that is.
I couldn't tell you. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I was troubleshooting all the RAM issues, and I finally got it to fail mem test. On Thursday I was messing around with it for several hours, and I got it to fail after like 9 hours of running mem test. And when I left it alone to like go eat, then it failed. Then I came back, then it stopped failing. So
So there's only one possible conclusion. So they have little imps in your walls who delight in your screams of anguish when the internet is bad, and they control your internet.
So in my troubleshooting, my friend Paul let me use a couple sticks of DDR3 that he had in his computer. These G-Skill Ripjaws RAM. They're
I'm sorry.
much better.
You're talking about memory failure in your.
Well, yeah, right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you
in
were
the
still
computer.
talking about internet. I was like, what the hell? Like, why would you get a memory failure for your internet? Okay.
No, it. Good job, David.
I know. I'm smart. I'm bragging.
So, I bought that RAM like 3 years ago, brand new. Technically, it has a lifetime warranty, but I don't have any of the boxes or receipts or anything like that, so it doesn't matter.
There are imps in your computer, not your
Unfortunately,
fault.
yeah, there's imps in my computer. But I traded the RAM out for two 4 gig sticks that I knew worked and didn't cause any issues on Paul's computer. So the ones that are in there right now that have been failing are standard DDR3 1333 megahertz with cast timings of 999 and 24. Now you don't really know what that means. I barely know what it means, but basically those different timings are connected to the nanosecond latencies when for accessing certain pieces of information. So you can have really fast RAM, but your latency before it does that is going to be longer. If that makes sense. So there's kind of a...
What do you say fast RAM? Do you mean that it stores it fast?
No, the speed.
The speed at which memory is stored and retrieved?
Yeah. So
but then what's latency?
Basically the latency is when you click to go save something, it's that time before it actually saves it after you clicked it. It's that interval where nothing is happening. But then once it does queue it, then it goes really fast.
Oh, okay. So it's the queue time versus the actual transfer time.
And it's a trade-off. So this G-Skill RAM is 2133 megahertz, much faster. And the cast timings are 9, 11, 10, and 28, which actually isn't too bad. Typically, once you get up to that 2,000, even closer to 3,000 range, then they start going to like 11, 11, 11, 30, or 12. And, I mean, we're talking like a couple nanoseconds difference, but when you're in games and things like that and benchmarks, it all piles in.
Why? Because the number of memory processes is so high that the latency compounds, or?
Just because it's always in use, it basically calculates it. That's what the benchmarks do, and the actual speed of it. But what's kind of interesting is this is not low profile RAM, and it's 1.65 volts. And my low profile RAM, 1333 megahertz, that's in there right now that was failing, is 1.5 volts. And I read some places that you can overvolt your RAM and it might help in stability before I actually get new sticks of RAM. So far, I think it might have helped, but I'm not sure.
Did they provide a reason why just having a higher electric potential is going to make your RAM more stable? If anything, that would like make your circuitry more vulnerable to shorting out.
It does shorten the lifespan. Anytime you overclock, it's going to shorten your lifespan. Mainly because the hardware isn't built for it. The manufacturer didn't spec it to 1.6 volts, which is what I overclocked it to instead of 1.5, which is actually a fair overclock, or rather overvolt. And B, the heat output from overclocking kind of starts to hurt the hardware, so to speak. But if you can cut down on the heat, that's why you have these giant heat sinks and water cooling. Then when you overclock, there's not really much to fear.
So what kind of, you said you had limited success with that?
Yeah, I was able to get it longer, maybe like an extra day before it crashed, or just randomly restarted. But it needs new RAM, flat out.
I find it strange that the RAM, I mean, well, I guess, right, your RAM, like, why would your RAM cause your computer to crash? Does your RAM also...
RAM stores everything, man.
Okay.
Your operating system is
everything
basically stored in your RAM when you're using it. And, like, right now, I must have, like, 20 tabs open. Spotify, media player, Skype and
I mean, I guess
text
that
what is
makes
running
sense,
right
right?
now.
Because you can only read from the disk, but you can't actually like easily do computations on the disk. I mean, computations from
Read and
memory
write
that
from
you're
the disk.
disk. Yeah. Okay.
And the RAM is also much faster bus speed. I think Memtest reports the speed of the RAM when you're testing it. I think the dual channel 2 4 gig sticks that I have in there, I think that comes out to just over 8,000 megabytes per second. Versus even an SSD that's plugged in through SATA 3 has a maximum of 6 gigabits per second.
Okay, which is orders of magnitude less.
Yeah. I think that comes out to about 400 megabytes per second. So it's about 20 times slower, technically.
20 times.
And that's also why people
I'm not good
create
at big
RAM disks.
sizes.
Have you ever heard of a RAM disk?
No, I haven't.
So it's basically people put in boatloads of RAM to their motherboard, and they create a RAM disk so that when they boot up their operating system, it's stored in the RAM.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it boots up a lot faster. But to do that, I believe your computer has to like always be on or like sleeping, because when you turn off your computer, everything from the RAM goes away.
Yeah, the only thing that's
it's
hard
the-
written is in a hard drive, right?
Right, or an SSD, and the difference between the two solid states of what NAND chips they put on RAM versus in a solid state drive is basically just whether or not the silicon can hold the information.
For example. Okay,
Right.
so
So
okay,
once the
only
power
difference between-
once these stop receiving power, any information that's in them is non-existent.
Yeah, I think this is what you're talking about right now is really interesting. Like how like data is stored, because I know when you delete a file from even from a thumb drive, even like you don't actually delete it, even if the file isn't recoverable by conventional methods. Like law enforcement can retrieve files that were deleted, and it has to do with the fact that you can't actually kill the space that memory used to inhabit. But then I never
could.
understood how is it that when you delete something you free up memory? Can you overwrite?
So-
can you literally overwrite memory?
Basically what happens is, in the case of a thumb drive, you have different, we'll call them memory slots. So you save things to a certain address, and then when you code, you want to access that information, or when you go and click and say, okay, I want to open this folder, then you're basically saying, okay, access the information at this address. And that also has a piece of information that's written to it. So when you delete something, you delete that address.
Not the actual data that's associated
Right.
with.
So
okay.
all the ones and zeros are still in that address. It's just deleting the like whatever you use to go find it.
Yeah, the route. It's like getting rid of the map, not the place. But then, how is it that you actually free up memory in these devices by deleting things?
Basically, it says, okay, well, that address had this much space in it, so if you delete that map that had that space, if you delete the map of a city, and the city had so many square miles associated with it, then you free up that many square miles, basically.
What? But see, that to me would suggest that you could fill up the entire drive full of ones and zeros, delete all the maps, and then fill it up again.
Hmm.
But I mean, but the cities themselves, you know, in our analogy, still exist. So how could you build a city on
They
top of
still
a city?
exist until you bulldoze them and build something new.
Oh, okay. And how does and
So
that
it takes all the
happens just
addresses and it says, okay, you can do whatever with them now. You can
okay.
you can put in, you know, a fountain, a statue.
So so the map is not just isn't just a map. It's also a like a title of existence, you know.
Hmm.
And once you get rid of that, then you might as well okay, just demolish it. Okay.
So when they're looking to find information and recover information, they're looking at all those ones and zeros. What pattern is there? So I think memory that hasn't been written to are still just all zeros. So if they go through and they just see a bunch of zeros, they're like, okay, well, there's nothing there. Which is also why when you want to truly delete information, you write the drive full of zeros.
You write the drive. Okay.
Or
So that's
ones,
how
it
you
doesn't
do
really
this.
matter. As
Of
long
any
as you
useless
rewrite
information.
everything on the
Okay.
drive.
So you have
That's
to fill
true
the
delete.
entire drive. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I've done that
'Cause
several
that
times with
demolishes
old
all the
drives
cities.
before.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
with
How do you
some
do that? How do
people.
you write?
There's like a boot disk that you can launch, and I forget what it's called, but basically you go in and you say, okay, right. At least the way I did it, it was really like the late 90s type of UI, and you had to click and then say edit, highlight, or something like that, and then just go down as far as possible down in the
Drop down
sectors.
menu?
And once you got so far along, it basically just wipes the operating system because it's kind of towards the beginning. But nowadays you can just, like, I think the partition wiper that I use, you can just say, okay, zeros, do it,
Okay.
and then you're all good.
That's good to know.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of sad because when I bought these sticks of RAM, I think I got them for like $35.
Mhm.
Not per stick. Both
For
4 gig
the-
sticks for $35. Do you know how expensive that is?
Right. I have
To
no
get that
idea what
nowadays?
one of those is. Maybe $100 for both of them.
Almost, yeah. It's about 130 for 2 8 gig sticks now, and then to get 8 gigs, one 8 gig stick or 2 4 gig sticks or 4 2 gig, all of those are basically around 70. Yeah, so like twice as much as they used to be. So I'm not too happy that I have to go and buy new RAM. But if I do, I'll probably get 16 gigs and like have some high quality stuff, because the difference between quality RAM and cheap RAM is about $10 to $15.
Mhm. And when you say quality RAM, does that mean like not liable to shutting down your computer randomly or forgetting processes or something like that?
Yeah, they tend to come with like lifetime warranties, that kind of thing. But I got those on a good deal, so I'll probably just wait till there's a good sale or deal somewhere else, on either online or at Fry's.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's fun. I can look forward to having that up and running again and start to play some more games on it. So I haven't really been playing that many games since it's been so unreliable. Alright, well, let's get
Next
back
up.
to... Oh, speaking of games...
Far Cry 3.
No, you got it wrong, David.
Far Cry 3. Isn't that what it's called?
It's not. That's not what it's called.
No, it's Just Cause 2.
Yes.
People were freaking out about Far Cry 2. Too.
Far Cry 4 is already out.
Oh, it is. Well, people like it. People like that game.
Yep.
So.
Well, a lot of
I
people
didn't-
like Just Cause 2. I don't know if you guys have ever played Just Cause 2, but I thought it was a great game. You know, what kind of made that game was all the crazy physics and the unrealism, how you could skydive out of a plane and then grapple hook to pull yourself into the ground and you'd be just fine.
Yeah.
But if you just let yourself fall to the ground, then you die.
Yeah.
That's just like
But you know,
the signature
you gotta get
of that game.
there's a threshold acceleration. Once you're going really, really fast, then you don't die. I think I remember that like the funnest level in that game was the blink level, because I think you could parachute from.
Well, they had a plane up there too that you could just fly off and then fly around. But the what's it called? The campaign or like storyline of that game, they only put that in there because they had to have something, like a
That was a
reason to make
sandbox.
the game. It was definitely a sandbox game. I have so many hours invested in that game, and I think I barely passed halfway completion for all the cities and everything. It's crazy. But for 2010, those graphics were awesome. So I'm really excited to see what Just Cause 3.
Do you want to see any new features or any new aspects of gameplay, or do you just kind of want more of the same?
I'd like to see probably more vehicles. And there was another thing, another issue that I had with, I think maybe the AI. The AI might be a little bit better, or I mean, could be a little bit better. I can't remember. I know there's one thing that I didn't quite like about the game, so can't remember that right now. Haven't played in a little while.
Well, and when can we anticipate that coming out?
This year at some
Soon.
point. Hopefully.
And
soon.
are you gonna need a high-end gaming rig to enjoy the game? Do you think, or do you think it's gonna have a lot of playability?
It's gonna be. Well, hopefully they don't change it. If they don't change it too much from Just Cause 2, then we can expect there to be really good graphics for all the high-end users. Like if you turn Just Cause 2's graphics up all the way to ultra settings or whatever, then it looks great. It really does. All the shadows, the water, looks great. But if you turn everything down to really low, it's like you could play it on any modern laptop pretty much that has at least like a Core i processor in it, just because of the HD graphics that are built into all the processors nowadays. Those would be plenty to handle minimum settings. It's like I can, on my laptop here, I think I have an i7 4600U in it. I think it has HD 4400 graphics, which I technically could run Just Cause 2 on without any issue. At least run it, but for some reason it doesn't like the computer, so I can't play it. Like in Need for Speed World, you know what that is?
I know the Need for Speed, franchise.
It's like
racing game.
It's like a massive multiplayer open world. They combined a couple maps from previous games, and they updated all the graphics, that kind of thing. But that, I can play like lower medium settings on this, above minimum. Same with League of Legends. I can crank out like solid 20 frames per second when it's on medium. But
But
when
yeah,
you're in that
for a
kind of game, you
MOBA,
want.
you want higher. You want
Oh
at
yeah,
least,
oh yeah. So
if not.
I keep it on minimum pretty much. I think I up some of the resolution textures and that's it. But even like Gary's mod, that whole engine, the source engine, I can't run that on highest, but I can run it. And that's kind of the whole point when you have the minimal hardware that's not meant to game or to do anything graphically intensive. You just want to be able to run it. And so
And just
I think,
because 3, we can expect that to be just
yeah,
fine.
yeah, I think that's how it's going to be. But you get into like Call of Duty and Battlefield, I don't think they really
They don't
care about
tolerate
people.
any kind of hardware.
Yeah, because people who play those games are typically people who have,
Very nice computers.
yeah, and the hardware to be able to run them. So I think once Just Cause 3 comes out, I might get a better graphics card. Because apparently the one I have in there right now, which is a HD 6770, I bought it like 4 years ago almost, which blows my mind it was that long ago, but the power that you can get for less than I bought that card for 4 years ago is just amazing now.
Yeah.
But of course,
Yeah,
if I buy a new video card,
everything's
it's gonna be
rendered
a lot better.
obsolete in 2 years, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
but, and you know, I tell this to people who buy, you know, HPs or Dell desktops. In the laptop realm, you can't really get around that because you can't really build your own laptop. But for any desktop that you go out and buy, there's always some type of non-standard, what's it called? Like manufacturing process that they use. I remember I got this old Pentium 4, like hyper-threaded. It was like the best Pentium 4 processor you could have. And it was in this Dell machine. And the board was Dell, the case was Dell, power supply was Dell, you know, just everything, and it was made to be in that case. And I got this other case that was even older, and I thought it looked really cool. It had like blue LEDs on it. It was flashy. What else? I got a better power supply, and I wanted to move what I had in the Dell case and take it out and put it in that case, because I also had a new motherboard and things to put in to the Dell case. And when I put everything back into that Dell case, things didn't line up exactly. Like the front panel connector was some non-standard like plug that everything went into and then had one spot for it, and nothing was
So-
labeled on it.
So you suggest that I mean, what do you when people buy PCs or they go about buying components to buy a PC? You think they should just get a case so that you know they don't have to deal with proprietary, weird, you know, casings?
It's just
or-
another plus to building your own desktop if you want to have a desktop. If you
I
don't
mean,
want to have
it's a
to deal
brain
with,
dead exercise, right? Like I could build a PC.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you spend any amount. I mean, it's obviously going to take longer than buying that precision tower and then putting it down, plugging your stuff in, and then it works. It's more complicated than that. It just is. It's a DIY project.
But it's
And-
also a connect the dots kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, things are labeled. This is the front panel power button. Look on the board, power button there, plug in. It's basically all there is to it. You screw in your hard drive, and you plug in. You're just plugging more stuff in on the inside of the computer before you plug the computer itself in.
Okay, so yeah. Well, I mean, you also have to like, yeah, but you have to plug the components in, which usually means like maybe some screws and stuff. But yeah, it's not hard, I don't think.
Exactly. I think the hardest part is just choosing the hardware. Once you have all the hardware chosen, then every computer build is pretty much the same unless you want to do something special. I think the easiest special thing that you can do is either put in new fans, because most cases come with fans on them nowadays. I bought this case with a front 180 millimeter fan. I know other cases come with them, but you can either put more fans in, or you can use a non-stock heatsink for your CPU. That's really simple. You buy it and you just follow the instructions on how to mount it, 'cause it's some type of custom mounting hardware. For this motherboard, I had to take the back plate of the motherboard off beneath the CPU, because I had to put a different plate beneath it on so it could hold the heatsink on. So that's a little extra. It's not that big of a deal. You just have to mount it correctly.
It's not difficult. Yeah. Definitely suggest you'd suggest. Yeah, I think the problem is my dad thinks I'm like, I don't know, he thinks I'll break it or something. He bought me a computer. He bought me a well, when I asked for the desktop, I was only 12 years of age. But we did choose the components. So I mean, it is true that when you custom order a PC, like online, you can choose what components you want in your PC.
There's tons of customability.
Yeah.
Customability. Customability. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't buy an HP with this case style. So. Anyway, speaking of off topic, the only other things I have as far as topics go are the Apple event in March. Wait, it is March. Shoot.
First day of March.
Yep, happy March. So on the 9th, Apple is having their event. I don't really know what to call it. I don't think it's a press conference necessarily.
Are you excited for it? I know you're not a big Apple products guy.
I'm not into Apple. Yeah, let's not go into that.
Okay.
And so they'll probably release maybe something about the next iPhone. I think they're going to be talking about.
Screen is now an extra 1 millimeter tall. Only $600.
Yeah. What was I talking about? Oh yes, what else they're going to be presenting is, I believe, the next iteration to their OS X platform.
Okay.
And of course,
they don't really do they do like operating systems like with Windows where you have like discrete like Windows 7, Windows XP, blah blah blah, or do they just develop OS X?
So
as it is.
It started out as just OS, Macintosh OS. The X comes from it being the 10th edition. And so the whole OS X line even goes way back to the 90s. And I think they're on like, what, 10.11 now? Something like that. So they have like 10.1, 10.2, 3, 4, 5. 5 was leopard, 4 was tiger, 6 was snow leopard, and then it is newer from there. But they're all based on the same looks. It has the same look. Even way back on 1, they still had the the bar at the top and the little launcher thing at the bottom. So it's looked the same for quite a while. They changed the little things like how it comes out of the tray, that kind of stuff, but nothing really brand new like Windows has.
Or substantial, you don't think?
Hmm.
So it's not a very exciting event then.
It
Just
could
because
be
they're
depending.
conservative.
What was that?
I mean, they tend to be pretty conservative. I mean, they have like gimmicky things where obviously the iPhone and the iPod was conservative, but in terms of their computers, they're pretty conservative.
Yeah. Nothing. Yeah, that's basically what the operating system is like. Just not really that much to say about it. I imagine they have their new features, what you can and can't do still, that kind of thing. But the main event at the Apple event is not the iWatch, but the Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch. Maybe iWatch sounds a little creepy.
I don't know. I don't know why they called it the Apple Watch. Maybe they wanted to get away from the I names.
Branding, yeah. So what do you think Apple Watch is cool? Do you think it's kind of...
Honestly, I don't see either. It's just my opinion that I don't want to be connected all the time, or I just don't. I don't know. Any wearables really don't appeal to me.
They don't have enough functionality for me to be interested in them at this point.
Yeah.
It's like cool, like I can read like little Twitter updates and I can have like a custom background watch, but
For me, it's more like. Okay, so I used to have this size of phone. Probably won't mean much, but compared to my hand, kind of hard to hold it, but compared to a Nexus, this is a 4.3-inch screen, and Nexus 5.
it's a little bigger.
It's a fair size difference, and it's also about as thick. So when you put it in your pocket, it feels big, and to try and take it in and out of your pocket all the time when you need to respond to an email and that kind of thing is annoying, unless you really have to. So for me, there's some emails where it's like, oh, okay, I don't really need to know about that. And if I have a watch, like Android Wear or something, then it'll come from the phone to the watch, let me know who just emailed me, and I can swipe notifications away on the watch then. That's kind of what it's made to do, but I just don't see the need for a $200 device to do that.
No. Yeah, I mean, gosh, bringing my phone out of my pocket is so exhausting, right?
Yeah. But those kinds of things push the industry forward, so.
Eventually,
New
I think
stuff.
wearable tech is going to get really, really cool. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to make components are going to become so small that your Apple Watch could be your Apple iPhone. Like, it could be an independent thing. And in that case, and then maybe, it has a laser display, so, you don't actually, you can actually generate a display.
Like a projector on the table, and then you can use the table.
Yeah, there are some fancy sci-fi stuff that's...
Which they've already made, like, laser projection keyboards that you can use.
Yes, yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Those are cool, yeah. I've heard some issues, I've seen on some forums, like, they're not super precise, but yeah, I appreciate the iWatch, because eventually, or the Apple Watch, excuse me, I'm so used to their eye branding.
Yeah.
It'll be cool eventually. As it stands now, it doesn't have enough functionality for me to be interested in it.
So, also in the news today, actually, the Galaxy S6 and the S6 Edge were announced.
Are you excited? I mean, I know the Galaxy. I know Samsung Galaxy is considered like the best, or one of the best, you know,
Flagship
and
devices to get. I'm excited and I'm not excited. And to be honest, you know, they're for the S6 they went all back. Supposedly they built it from the ground up, but it looks just like a Galaxy device. And the plus that I do see is that they took a page out of what they did with the Note 4 and the Galaxy Alpha, and they made the outer edge of it metal, which looks good and it also feels better. It feels more hefty to hold, like it's an actual real device rather than just holding plastic in your hand. And honestly, like with my old phone, you can't really tell, but it is metal. These are just like soft touch overlays on top of this metal, and it's an HTC. The sides here, you probably can't see that very well, but I've dropped it a few times, so there's little nicks here or there. You can kind of maybe see shininess up in the corner where it's scraped, and it's actual aluminum, and it feels better in the hand compared to the Nexus 5 that I have now. So I'm glad they went with metal. However, they got rid of everything removable about the phone.
care to explain?
You can't remove the back, you can't remove the battery, and as far as I know, you can't add an SD card in.
Okay.
Which,
Well, I mean, the whole point of Android phones is that they don't have that kind of silly, you know, closed form.
which is really interesting because most of the phones nowadays are closed off. You can't do much to it. And the same
Yeah.
case is with the HTC M9 that was also announced today. You can't do anything with it. You can't put in, I don't think you can put in an SD card. I was gonna check that right now to see if I'm forgetting something, but you can't remove the battery either, and they make it hard to do that.
Yeah, I don't know
At least
why
with the Nexus 5, I expected the no SD card thing. I knew about that, but there were certain parts of the phone that made me say, all right, well, I can relinquish my want for an SD card and get this. And as far as it not having a user replaceable battery, I kind of looked over that part because the back was removable. Basically, you just have to unclip it all, and then there's a tiny bit of adhesive to take it off. And there's also a tiny bit of adhesive for the battery. It's not like Gorilla Glued in there to where it's not going to come out, but it's stuck in there, so it won't move around. And so that's kind of why I opted for that. But
do you know why they don't let you know what incentive they have for not having removable
it saves
components?
space. It allows you to make the phone thinner.
Well, that's what the user demand is. See, because users they don't care. Well, the general user doesn't care.
Not anymore. People have already mentioned this about the iPhone 6, the 6 Plus, other devices that have basically made the phone thinner. It is now 0.3 millimeters thinner than the last phone.
Yeah.
For example, iPhone. But then people say, oh, we want more battery life. And then they make the phone thinner, so they have to put in a smaller battery.
Yeah.
So I do like the M9 for one point only. And that is because they made it slightly thicker slightly smaller. It has the same basic look with the speakers on the front, the unibody aluminum design, and they put in a bigger battery. Not that hard to do. I believe it's... How much thicker is it from the M8? It doesn't say. But I think it's just like hardly even noticeable thicker type of thing. And they put in like an extra 300 milliamp hours, which is probably about an hour or two difference, probably. But as far off the topic of flagship devices, and onto, something maybe a little bit more budget friendly, because I know a lot of people don't have the money for a $600, $700, $800 phone. Apple.
Hey, I got this thing for free, but that's only because Verizon overcharges us on our contract.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so they have new phones that you can just buy from the manufacturer. Motorola, one of them, has the Moto E. So their Moto X is their flagship. The Nexus 6 was kind of modeled after that. It's made by Motorola, except it's just bigger. It's like a big Moto X, pretty much. The Moto G is kind of the step down, where you don't need all the high-end specs, but you still want a good running phone. And then there's the Moto E, which is their basic budget. I think it's like $140. And it's surprising how speedy and responsive it is for the hardware that's in it. And supposedly has pretty good battery life too, because of the hardware not being so power hungry and high end.
That's a good option. That's a good alternative.
Mm-hmm. But I would really like to see some better battery life in the future for flagship devices.
Yeah, I think the Nexus 5, and I was looking at, had a really cool battery saving feature where you could reduce power consumption. Do you think instead of just supplying more battery power, the devices could better allocate and have more modes for power consumption?
Battery life is the one thing holding devices back right now. We've gotten so good at efficiency, like the new AMD Chorizo. Can't remember the Chorizo processors that they're coming out with soon are really efficient at lower power ratings. So things for tablets, ultra thin computers that aren't doing a whole bunch of computations, and even phones, possibly. So you might see an AMD processor in the phone or tablet, either way. So if they release a battery that lasts for days, and they have this whole new technology for batteries, that's going to be like, if you can make that, you're like a guaranteed millionaire at that point.
Yeah, the battery technology is. The thing is we might make the remark that, wow, battery technology never gets better, but it's not that it doesn't get better. It's just that it doesn't get better as fast as other things. Because you always draw
Exactly.
power. So it's the lagging technology.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I think that wraps up our show here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting topics today. We got a little off topic, but migrated back on topic. It doesn't really matter. That's kind of what this show is about. Just talking about technology in a kilobit manner.
A kilobit manner. Hopefully we're not doing data transfer with that. It'd be a lot. It just considered it as asking.
You're cutting out, David.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Well, it's a convenient time to end the show, then.
Yeah. All right. I'll end the show, whether or not they can hear or see you.
Okay.
Anything to say? Last words, David.
Have a nice beginning of spring for those in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah. We can't. I'm sorry, David. We can't hear you. So, we'll see you next week.